Hi, I'm DuEwa Frazier, and you're listening to episode 34 of Nerdacity podcast. Today, my guest is children's author Vincent Kelly. Vincent is a husband, father, and an award-winning author. He resides in Nashville, Tennessee with his wife and two sons. Vincent loves writing stories that are filled with fun, color, life lessons, and that focus on promoting positive behavior and early learning in children. Vincent's goal is to write books that children all over the world will grow to love. Find out more about Vincent Kelly's books at www.vincentmkelly.com. I hope you enjoy this episode. So much for joining me on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. This is going to be fun.
Of course. And I want to congratulate you on your latest book for children, All People Are Beautiful.
Thank you so much. I'm excited. I'm really excited to share it with the world.
You know, Vincent, I often I look at the works of the wonderful authors that I've been interviewing, and I'm like, wow, I'm always curious about the story of how they got to where they are now, the journey of becoming a writer. Can you talk about that journey that you've been on and what your early inspirations were?
Sure. So my journey is probably really interesting in that I am not a writer by background. In fact, it's actually something that I kind of stumbled upon. So in my day job, I'm an HR professional. I've been doing that for about 16 years. And I just got inspired one night sitting at home after eating dinner with my wife and my two sons. They're 5 and 3. And so every day is just interestingly eventful in the best way. But they were running around just being themselves. And I looked at my wife and I said, you know what? I feel inspired to write a children's book. And my wife knows I'm a creative. And so she just turned on the TV and she said, well, what is it going to be about? And I said, you know what? I think it's going to be about this. And I think it's going to be about that. And she was like, I think you got something. And DuEwa, like that night, I set up and I wrote my first book in about an hour and a half.
Wow.
And the rest is just kind of history. It's interesting how life kind of comes full circle. And my grandfather was actually an author, but he never published any of his works. But from my earliest, experiences, and even now with my own kids, I find that they love some of the exact same books that I did as a kid. And so books by Bill Martin, who wrote Brown Bear, Brown Bear. It's a staple for homes and classrooms even today. That book, and then you've got Eric Carle, who wrote The Very Hungry Caterpillar.
Oh,
so
yes.
Books like that. Mm-hmm. There's no way you can forget it, right?
Right.
And I can recite those books today, and I learned them when I was 6.
Wow.
But yeah, so that's really some of my inspiration and kind of how I got to being a writer.
So would you say that some of those early books, you really kind of absorbed the writing, the style, just really having books around as a child made an impression on you?
I think so, because your books have a way of connecting, whether it's with the way they use, whether they write, whether they don't, or how the pictures help to tell the story that you're kind of hearing words, right? And so they just have a way of connecting and kind of staying with you. And it was interesting. I found even with my own children, I bought the book just because I loved it, and they immediately connected to it. And what's even more interesting is that how they begin to memorize the pages or what's on the pages, the words on the pages, even if they can't read, right? Because the book connects with them so. And so that's what I desire, even with my own books that I pen.
That's wonderful. And you touched upon a really important idea that, we often think, oh, if a kid can't read a book on their own, it's not a big deal that they're not read to. But I've always been a proponent of no, read to children, read to them with, voice and inflection and excitement, because they're feeling it. They get the intent, and they can look at the images and really get it. Did you find that your own children really responded in that way, and you saw that, hey, they're actually being impacted by the story, even if they're not reading it independently?
Absolutely, 100%. So, and it's interesting. So, as you say that, I read with lots of inflection. I'm very animated. And even when I'm reading the words on the page, I'm actually pointing with my fingers to each of the words. And so, although my children are very young, they're very young, but they're following along, right? And even though we don't think that they can read at the time, they're picking up, they're recognizing, and repetition builds something in kids, and it really helps. It helps them academically. So absolutely, 100% agree.
I love that. And would you say that writing for children has been even something that you feel that you are able to contribute to the educational sphere, to other children, to parents, to librarians? Tell me about what your connections have been to schools, to libraries, and even young readers since you've become a children's author.
Yeah, so that was actually, one of my, biggest goals. I wanted to create books that would, just like the Brown Bear and the Very Hungry Caterpillar, that they would last, generations. And so they could be useful for both the classroom as well as the home. And so in my attempt to do that, I've actually reached out to school systems. And so there are certain school systems that have actually adopted my newest book. Lots of schools are really big right now with the theme of social emotional learning and diversity, books that
Yes.
have a heavy focus on love and empathy and early literacy, language immersion, and then also imagination and creativity. So any book that can hit on one or all of those points, it's a shoe-in for schools. Uh, it's a shoe-in for schools, and so I found that they've been extremely receptive in reaching out for the books. And if you can accompany the book with a teacher's guide, that kind of puts you in a different ballpark. And so that's also kind of helped as well.
That's wonderful. And you mentioning a teacher's guide, I think that's excellent. And I'm fascinated by, the question of, okay, do authors create their own teacher guides? Do they pair with an educator to do that? How have you been able to work with having some curriculum for your books?
Yeah, so I'm not an educator by background either, and so um, because I'm a creative, I have an idea. It's just the way my brain works. I have an idea of things that I think would be really, really cool for kids to kind of take from the book. And so I jot those down, get it presented how I think it should look. And then I have a network of educators that I'm able to kind of tap into and say, hey, would you take a look at this? Take a look at this and see how it resonates with you. And could this actually be something useful for you in your classroom for the age group that this book is actually targeting? Um, and then I'm receptive to the feedback. And I found that has actually gone a long way. So seeking I think the approval rating of an educator is always a great option.
I love that. And I think, more authors, especially with children's writings and even middle grade and teen, partnering with schools and teachers is just a really great thing, because then you're going straight to, the demographic that you really want to reach. You're going straight to the young readers and those folks who are buying the books and ordering the books for them to read. So I really think that's a great thing.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And so, Vincent, you are the author of 2 children's books to date. The Awesome Things I Love was your first book. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep.
And then more recently, All People Are Beautiful. And tell me, how have you been able to, you mentioned you're an HR professional of 16 years. How have you been able to balance your writing life and production of children's books with your, with your being a corporate professional and also even a family man?
So lots of late nights and even early mornings. And so I'm typically on conference calls from very early in the morning till, the early afternoon. And then I've got to get home and I've got to put on, other hats. So I'm husband, I'm also a dad. And so I've got to be all those things. And then it's many times after everyone has kind of gone to bed where I've kind of got to take some time out and kind of put into the book. But for me, it's been really about the balance and kind of keeping, things in their rightful places. And so, where it may not necessarily be as convenient throughout the week to maybe focus on the book, I can kind of carve out times, on the weekend, right, where I have a little bit more flexibility. But one of the things that I do, DuEwa, is I keep a black book with me at all times. And so that's kind of like my inspiration book. And so I always want to be in the place where I can always be inspired because I'm a creative. And so just about everything can inspire me. It can be a billboard. It can be a conversation that I'm having. It could be something that I see on TV. It could be something that I see driving in my car. But I keep this black book so that I can just always be able to kind of jot down, those moments of inspiration so I don't kind of lose it. But then I can always go back to it.
That's wonderful. And I like to hear about, how other writers work their schedules and do things. Because I'm a writer, but I'm not someone that's like, okay, got to get up at 4 a.m. and start writing. I think I really go with the flow of my schedule, but I'm also pretty disciplined about my schedule and about what I have to do each day, but I don't always pinpoint it, by a certain time. I just find, a way to get things done.
Yeah.
And so going back to your first book, Vincent, The Awesome Things I Love, with the description of there are many great things in the world to see and love, so many things to like and try, so much that can pass you right by. 2 is better than 1. So let's come together and share what brings us lots of cheer from bedtime to playtime and people we hold dear. Ooh, I love the rhyme in that.
Thank you.
And so what was your inspiration for your first book? And also tell me about, some of the responses from young readers and just the reading community as a whole for your first book.
Sure. So, The Awesome Things I Love, that was the book that was, it was my inaugural, right? And so, again, that was the book that I wrote in about an hour and a half, that first draft, based upon just kind of, looking at life and observing my boys and the things that they take and kind of gravitate toward too, and me just kind of sensing, so these are the things that they love as kids. And how can I encapsulate that into a book? And so it just talks about really all of the fun rhyming things that kids enjoy, like ice cream and pizza and animals and playing outdoors. And while all those things are great, the focus of the book is really on the things that matter. So while I love those things, I also love my mom, I love my dad, I love my family, I love my friends. And at the end of the day, I love me. Right? And what makes the book so special is that readers can actually insert pictures of their family right there in the book. So it becomes a personal keepsake. And I think that has actually, been received extremely well within the reading community, in that it can be a personal keepsake and in that it can be taken into the classroom, but then also it can be read at home as a bedtime story, and that kids want to read it over and over again. And you find out that those things don't change, even for us as adults. So we still love ice cream. We still love pizza. We still may love animals or playing outdoors or sports and things like that. But it gives kids an opportunity to connect and be aware of the things that they like and know that what they like is actually okay and it can be cool. So it's been very well received.
I love that. And I can tell you one thing, if I were a kid, this cover, I would just want to put this book in bed with me because it's like, yes, not only the awesome things I love, but just all the favorite yummy things. You've got like cake, ice cream, popsicles, cupcakes, then you have a boom box, you've got pepperoni pizza. I'm like, the cover itself is just a visual feast. And I think any child would be like totally intrigued by it.
Thank you so very much. That's exactly what I was going for.
Oh yes, you did it. You did the dang thing, as they say with this cover. And so, Vincent, now coming forward to your most recent work, a very beautiful book, and I totally feel like it fits so much in line with current dialogue about diversity and inclusion, about embracing difference. As your book describes. All people are beautiful, all cultures are beautiful, all languages are beautiful. Celebrating our differences is beautiful. What better way to talk about diversity and acceptance than with bright colors, fun artwork, and interactive ways children can enjoy while they read? So I really want to take my hat off to you because I feel like any writings and educational initiatives that really bring children together and bring folks together of different backgrounds is so needed at this time. We need more understanding, more empathy, and certainly more of an embrace for diversity.
Thank you so very much. That is the ultimate compliment. So thank you very much.
And so tell me, once again, talking more about your inspirations. Now, this is your second book. So I'd love to hear your inspirations. What has the response been? And then thirdly, I'd love to hear for you, what did you learn in creating this book and with the publication of this story between the publication of your first book? So what was learned for you as a writer, as an artist, an author, between the two releases?
Yeah. So with this book, the inspiration, was really 2020. So there were some really great things that happened in 2020. So here in the U.S., we saw where we elected the first, African American, Asian American, and woman to the second highest level seat in our land, which was just exciting, right? It was a first, and it was groundbreaking, and so that was really exciting. But earlier in the year, we saw where racial tensions, they rose to an all-time high because of the events that also took place here in the U.S. And so it was out of, the George Floyd event and that I was inspired to write. I saw where, there were protests that actually happened all over the world, right? Not just here in the U.S., where people were coming together. People of every hue, of every culture, standing together. And literally my thought is that, when I saw all these people, it was all people are beautiful. So how can I weigh in on this conversation of diversity? So that was my first question. And my second question, okay, so that's a big conversation. So who can I talk to, right? And I was like, so why don't I talk to tomorrow's, politicians, tomorrow's policemen, women, and men, talk to tomorrow's doctors, lawyers, and presidents and teachers. And that's where the book was kind of birthed. And so I kind of started from there. And with this one, that was really the inspiration. I knew that I wanted to have a bigger reach. The message was one that no matter where you were in the world, you could actually get this, you could get the concept. And so I wanted to make it available in multiple languages. And so English, Spanish, Portuguese, French, Dutch, Swahili, and then also Chinese. The book is actually available in, which
Wow.
that was exciting as well. Um, so yeah, like that was really the inspiration. If I had to, kind of take a lessons learned, in this process, I think sometimes, you don't really know the impact of, this idea that you actually have until it kind of hits the bookshelves and you start getting the response from people. Um, and so, kind of going from concept to bookshelf, I did everything on my own with this one. So the first time I went through a traditional publisher. The second time with this book, I created my own publishing company and I self-published it from beginning to end.
Congratulations. Congratulations, Vincent. I didn't know that. I just assumed
Yeah,
both of them were published by a different publisher, you
nope,
know.
nope, nope. So I did everything myself. And I mean, even from the formatting of the book. So I wanted to learn the entire process from beginning to end. And
Wow.
it turned out very, very well.
So that
Um,
is a huge learning. That is huge between the first and the second one.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So then are you planning to do it again? Are you going to keep with, yourself as publisher, or are you going to, shop your next work to a different publisher?
So, I'm still kind of thinking about it because, because I'm a creative, I'm always kind of thinking about, what's next. So I've already written three other books, right? That
Hmm.
I'm just waiting on the right timing, and just trying to feel it out. Just trying to feel it out. I've had a lot of people that have reached out to me in response to my book. The second one saying, well, hey, do you help people publish books? And I honestly never thought about it up until now, And so um, I'll just say I don't know. I don't know. I don't have an answer just yet. I'm kind of open. I'm kind of open.
You're open, and that's fine. And that's a great place to be. Well, at least, you have the privilege of knowing both sides. You
That's
know what
right.
it's like to be, traditionally published, and then you know what it's like to be, an entrepreneurial author and, do it for yourself. So I think that's really great. You're in a position to have choice,
That's right.
which is really great. And so I wanted to ask you too, before we get even further deeper into your work, um, what do you prefer in terms of print book versus digital versus, ebook, which, ebooks and Kindle, those are still really popular. There are a lot of kids reading on tablets and iPads now. Do you have a preference?
So personally, yes, I'm old school. I want a good hardcover book. So I want a good hardcover book. But the world is different from when when I was coming up, in that there are all these options, right? So you've got ebooks and you've got paperback and you've got hardcover, um, and your audience may want access to all three, right? They may
Yes.
want the hardcover, when they're in their home, but because people take vacations, they may want to take your book with them, and so they need easy access to that, and so they want it on their tablet. They want it on their iPad. They want easy access to it, and so I think I have a personal preference, but I'm serving a world of people that want to read my book in different formats. So um, I'm definitely catering to that. And I've also kind of tapped into recently. So we've got, the hardcover, softcover, the ebook, but then I've also kind of tapped into, so how do I do an animated version of the book? And so I've got an animated version of the book on YouTube, um,
Wow. That's
just to
amazing.
kind of add
And
to it.
oh, I love that because, there's always young readers, teachers, librarians who really want to know about the visual resources that go with the book. Multimedia is in now.
Yeah,
Kids are already hooked into video games and social media and Snapchat and all these different things. And it's like, we have to meet them where they are, you know,
Yeah.
with the technologies that they enjoy most. So I think that's amazing. And congratulations on, putting your work in so many different formats and languages. And you are like truly ahead of the curve,
Thank you.
Vincent.
Thank you. And I didn't mention this, but I was really I want to kind of take it to the next level. So how do I appeal to all these different audiences? And so there's all the stuff online. I've even created an interactive website for the classroom. And so there's so much that kind of goes along with it. So I'm really excited. I'm really excited. This has been a fun journey.
That's amazing, Vincent. And thank you for explaining that, because I think you're really going to inspire for any writers who are thinking about writing for children, or even how to do how to create writing books for children that are kind of on multiple platforms and formats. What you're discussing is very informative. So thank you, for explaining all of that, even about putting your book in languages. That's something I have yet to do. I'm sure that it would be very useful to do, but a lot of it is, doing your research and spending the
Yeah.
time, sitting down to spend the time and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do with this story. I'm going to, plan this out and really kind of, go through each step. And so I think that's really great that you are focusing on those details, because, hey, it just keeps your book in life. It keeps it, with its own life for many, many years to come.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, sure. And so now, Vincent, I'm going to ask you a question that I've been pretty much asking all of my guests. We know that we've been dealing with this pandemic for over a year now, but yet creatives continue to create art in various forms. And so I'd like to ask you, has the pandemic impacted your creativity at all, in any way? And if so, what did you see within your work during this time period?
That's a really good question. And I immediately have an answer for it. So that's a really great question. So I definitely think the pandemic has impacted my creativity, um, but in the best way. I think the pandemic, it caused the entire world to stop almost at once. And so with the pandemic, although there were people that were impacted by it, it did cause us to kind of stop and kind of refocus, and kind of reset, and to kind of stabilize on many times the things that kind of really matter. And I think that has caused my creativity to be impacted on the positive front, in that, I was able to, as a children's book author, really, I had more time at home with my boys, to kind of really see their interactions and seeing the things they really kind of gravitate toward. Um, I got to kind of take my time, with them. Even with my book, I tested my book on them, right? Just to see,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so am I really what? So am I really hitting on something? What do you guys think? And so they're 5 and 3. And so
Oh.
if you don't catch them on the first page, if you don't catch them on the second page, and if they don't want to stay around for the third page, then you may want to think about something else, right? Because but it caught their attention. It caught their attention, and so I was able to test the animated video,
Mm.
and I think those kinds of things just kind of added to my creativity. I think it added to my tool belt. Uh, they were kind of like my litmus test.
Wonderful. You've got your own little focus group right there in the house with
That's
you.
right. That's right. That's right.
They're going to tell daddy yay or nay on his
And
creative work.
that's right. And kids are brutally honest, right?
Yes,
So
they are. That's great. And so, Vincent, I'd love for you to read a short excerpt if you have one that you're thinking about for your latest work, All People Are Beautiful, just to kind of give the folks a teaser on what you're talking about in your book.
Sure. Sure. I'm gonna read. Let's see. I'm gonna read about 4 different pages, and they're short reads, so this will be really quick. It says, "We come from different countries and places, have different faces, and represent all races, but all people are beautiful. We speak different languages. Some speak English, Spanish, Portuguese, French, Dutch, Swahili, and Chinese. There are so many languages to learn from each other. So we need all of these. All people are beautiful. Our differences are what unite us. No two of us are the same. If we were all just alike, it would be really boring and a shame. All people are beautiful. It doesn't matter what you look like. What matters is that we treat each other right." And so that's just an excerpt from the book.
Mm, I love that. You're giving the rhyme, you are giving that rhythm, that children really love. And also, I know that your book has beautiful illustrations in it. Um, Now, tell me about some of the in-book activities that you have inside of this story, and how can young readers and their parents or teachers use these activities?
Sure. Yeah. Again, one of the biggest focuses of the book is the concept of diversity and love and empathy. Um, and so throughout the book, they get to see, there is one main character who doesn't necessarily have a name, but throughout the book, he encounters all of these different kids, and all of them look differently. Um, and so at the end of the book, one of the activities is that while you've kind of seen all these characters, within the book, now you get to create your own character. And so I give them instructions. I say, hey, you want to think about, what clothes your person is going to wear. You're going to think about, their favorite colors. You're going to think about what color and the style of their hair, um, their color, their eyes. You want to give them a background. And at the end of the day, you want to give them a name. So everybody's got to have a name, right? So they get to kind of tap into their own creativity. And then the second activity is around designing their own flag. So each of the readers gets to design their own flag. They can, recreate their own country's flag, or they can design their very own flag that represents them. And so I go through and I say, hey, some flags have stars, some have circles, some have all these different pieces. But the only rule here is that you've got to just have fun. Just have fun. And kids have actually loved that. I've actually gotten pictures back from parents and also teachers where their students and children have completed the activity. So it's been really, really well received.
I love that. And tell me about the suggested reading range or age group for All People Are Beautiful.
Sure. So the suggested reading range is so K through second grade. And if parents want to, buy the book for homes, I don't think it's ever too early to start reading to a child. My wife and I, we read to our boys even in the womb. And so, so they can start reading as early as possible, but typically it will be K through second grade or 4 to 8.
Oh, that's wonderful. And, with us being in the pandemic, and we know that there are a lot of schools that were not fully open this year. And I understand that, if authors were doing school visits, that it kind of, inhibited authors from being able to do those in-person visits the way they normally would. So what do you think about moving forward? How will you, with the coming school semester, be able to interact with students and schools?
Good question. So it's interesting, with the pandemic, although, lots of schools were closed, And everyone had to pivot to the virtual experience. And so as an author, I had to pivot. I had to pivot as well in that same direction. So I've actually been doing some virtual authors visits. And so I've actually visited a couple schools and engaged with students with my book. And it's been extremely, it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun interacting with students, getting them to ask me questions about my journey, really what my inspiration was, but then also being able to inspire them, about learning and about writing and about, tapping into their creativity and the importance of education and doing well academically. So I've had to pivot, and it's been a fun journey. So it's been new for students as well as authors.
It's wonderful. And it's nice to hear about authors who are open to doing more of the virtual events and doing things with video and just really kind of adapting to, what we're all kind of being faced with at this time. Sort of really just like, okay, this has changed, so I'm going to change with it.
Yeah, yeah, we're resilient, right? And so we go with the flow.
And so, Vincent, what other ways have you been utilizing, whether this year or even recent, even before pre-pandemic? What are some other ways that you've used to reach your audience and your authors, marketing, regular interaction with them? How have you been able to do that, even apart from school visits?
Yeah, so I've done a couple things, and so I did solicit just the help um, of a book publicity company, just to really help with, helping me to market the book and really getting the word out there about All People Are Beautiful. How do I let people know that it's even available? There are millions of people here in the U.S. and even more around the world. So how do I get the word out there? So I'm in partnership with Books Forward. They are absolutely amazing. They're phenomenal. That's been one of the best things about, this past year and being able to market my book. I've also, just been in collaboration with a platform. It's called The Collaborative. Um, it's headed by Dr. Sheikah Houston and Principal Tammy Taylor. They're both phenomenal educators and principals out of the South Carolina. I've been able to join their platform and kind of talk about my book. I've even done some readings, but it's been just a phenomenal way just to create exposure, create conversation, and find another means of getting the word out there about All People Are Beautiful and its message.
That's wonderful. And Vincent, do you have any plans for, future creative projects, whether books or animation related to this book, or even any, new projects that may be on the horizon for you?
Yes, 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 and yes. So,
You know what? How did I know you were going to say that?
oh my goodness, yes, 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 and it's always so. How do I take this to the next level? So with my next book, how do I, even take the animation to the next level? And so you'll see with my future books that the illustrations will be different. They'll be different. I would love to see, my books picked up by a Netflix or Disney, and have something, created from there. So I am completely open. I'm actually going for it. But yeah, I've got more books. I've got more books. I'm also planning to host an authors and illustrators virtual book festival, where we provide resources and opportunities for authors and illustrators. We kind of educate them about industry, but then also create opportunities for them to collaborate. So a bunch of things that I've kind of got planned and kind of jotted down as ideas, And now it's kind of time to put the work together, bring my team together, and make it happen. So lots in my head and on paper. Now I've got to execute. So
I love it. So you're really going to be, it sounds like paying it forward, not only producing your own work, but making a way and creating platforms for other authors to be presented to the reading community. And it sounds like you're going to be doing some great networking as well with your virtual book festival.
absolutely. Absolutely.
And so, Vincent, please tell me, how we can best support you moving forward. And also, please tell us how we can follow you, your social media, and anything else you want to share with us.
Sure. So, one of the best ways that you can support me, the book is actually available on just about everywhere that books are sold. So, if you need a great book for your students or for your children, go out to Amazon, go out to Barnes and Nobles, go out to Walmart, Target. It is indie off. It's everywhere. It's indie bound. It's everywhere. I would also offer everybody just to connect with me on my social media. The easiest way to connect with me is to go to my website. My website is www.vincentmkelly.com. If you go there, you will have access to all of my social media. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. Just about everywhere. So connect with me there. I would love to engage and interact with you.
So wonderful. Well, Vincent, again, congratulations on your children's book. It sounds like you have a lot of exciting things planned for your books and for the literary community as a whole. And I want to continue to follow you. And of course, I hope that we'll stay in touch and have you back again for any future work that you're going to put out.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. This has been such a fun conversation. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Vincent, and take care.
All right. Be great and be well. Bye-bye.
And you were just listening to episode 34 of Nerdacity podcast featuring children's author Vincent Kelly. Vincent is the author of All People Are Beautiful. Visit his website at vincentmkelly.com. I hope you'll follow Nerdacity on Instagram, where I'm promoting poets and writers and also giving a little bit of cultural commentary. And that's at Nerdacity Podcast. If you're on Twitter, tweet me at NerdacityPod1. And if you've been enjoying these episodes, consider making a donation to support future episodes at anchor.fm/DuEwa support or by sending to paypal.me/DuEwaWorld. Also, check out my artist and author website at DuEwaWorld.com. Thanks so much for listening. Take care.